I have been thinking about something lately, and honestly, it surprised me a little. I started noticing how often I explain things. Not just big things, but little things too. Why I made a decision, why I changed my mind, why I need quiet sometimes, why I want to do something that maybe seems strange to someone else. At first, I thought maybe it came from worrying too much about what people think. I thought maybe it came from wanting approval or not wanting to disappoint people. And I think there is probably some truth in that. I think many of us care about being understood by the people we love. But then another thought came to me, and this one felt more honest. It felt more like me. I think I explain things because understanding matters deeply to me. When I understand something, I seem to accept it more peacefully. When life makes sense to me, I settle into it better. I stop wrestling with it quite so much in my head. I can breathe into it easier. And suddenly I found myself wondering if maybe I have been explaining things my whole life, not only because I wanted other people to understand me, but because I was trying to understand things myself. That thought stopped me for a moment. Because if I am honest, I think I have always been this way. When I was little, my dad used to get frustrated with me so many times because I was always asking so many questions. I was always asking why. Why does this happen? Why do people do that? Why does life work this way? Why can't I do this? Why should I believe that? Apparently, I could be very exhausting. But my grandmother used to laugh and say, she is inquisitive. She just wants to know. And when I think back on that, especially now, I think maybe my grandmother understood something about me before I understood it myself. I think I have always wanted to understand life. I do not mean understand it in some big, perfect, philosophical way where suddenly everything becomes clear. I mean, I want to understand people. I want to understand choices. I want to understand pain, relationships, fear, love, loss, meaning, and even myself, maybe. Maybe understanding has always been how I make peace with life. And maybe that explains why I explain things. Because when something makes sense to me, I feel calmer about it. I feel more accepting of it. I trust it more. But lately, I have also been wondering if there is another side to this, because as much as understanding has helped me, I think there have also been times where needing to understand everything first quietly kept me stuck. That part is harder to admit. Sometimes I think I have wanted life to make perfect sense before moving forward. I wanted certainty. I wanted reassurance. I wanted things to feel understandable before trusting myself. And maybe that sounds reasonable, but life does not always work that way. Sometimes relationships do not make sense. Sometimes grief does not make sense. Sometimes people disappoint us, and we never fully understand why. Sometimes we feel pulled towards something, and we cannot fully explain it. And if I am honest, I think I am living that one right now. Because lately, I keep thinking about the Camino. People ask me why I want to go. And honestly, I understand the question. I am 68. I am going alone. I am walking across another country. Why? And if I'm honest, I ask myself the same thing sometimes. Why does this matter to me so much? Why do I feel called to do it? Why does something in me feel so alive when I think about it? Sometimes I try to explain it, and I notice myself trying very hard to make it make sense. Maybe it is growth. Maybe it is an adventure. Maybe it is healing. Maybe it is freedom. And maybe it is proving something to myself. And perhaps it is a little bit of all those things. But then recently, I had another thought. What if I do not fully understand yet? What if part of the understanding comes from the actual walking? What if something in life only begins to make sense while we are living them? That idea hit me deeply. Because maybe I have spent too much of my life believing I cannot move forward until I fully understand. Or I need life to make perfect sense before I trust myself. And lately, I have been wondering if sometimes the opposite is true. Maybe sometimes we need to move forward without fully understanding in order to understand. Maybe sometimes trust comes first. Maybe we take the step and the meaning slowly reveals itself afterward. I think about that with my own life. I did not fully understand motherhood before becoming a mother. I did not fully understand heartbreak while I was living through it. I certainly did not fully understand who I was becoming after relationships changed me, after life changed me, after responsibility slowly shaped me. Sometimes understanding only came much later. Sometimes life whispered its meaning afterward. And that has made me think differently about explaining things too. Because I do not think explaining is bad. Actually, I think sometimes explaining is love. Sometimes it is respect. Sometimes it is care. If the people I love are affected by my choices, I think they deserve understanding too. I know for me, when I understand something, I accept it better. I soften into it. I stop fighting. It is so much inside myself. So maybe the people we love are not so different. Maybe sometimes explaining is simply saying, let me help you understand where I am coming from. Because this matters and you matter. That feels healthy to me. That feels kind. But I also think there is another side, because somewhere between healthy communication and over-explaining, I think there is a line. And lately I have been wondering if I crossed that line more times than I realized. At what point does explaining become defending At what point do I stop communicating and start asking for permission? At what point am I no longer sharing myself, but quietly trying to make everybody comfortable? Enough for me to trust my own choices. I do not think there is an easy answer. I think it is probably a balance, a healthy balance between caring enough to explain when love, respect, and understanding matter, while also trusting myself enough to know I do not need everybody's approval before I move forward. That feels like the lesson I might be learning right now. Not perfectly, not at all at once, just slowly. And maybe that is part of getting older, that nobody really talks about. Maybe part of aging is not becoming someone entirely new. Maybe it is understanding yourself better. Maybe it is noticing patterns that quietly shape your life. Maybe it is finally understanding why you are the way you are, and then gently asking yourself, does this still serve me? Because I think my grandmother was right. I am inquisitive. I do want to know. I probably always will. I still want to understand life. I still want to ask why. And maybe there is something else I am learning too. Maybe understanding is not always what comes first. Maybe sometimes trust comes first. Maybe sometimes we move forward before life fully makes sense. And maybe, just maybe, sometimes I need to trust myself in order for things to finally make sense. And before I go, I would love to hear your thoughts on this. If you are someone who asks a lot of questions, likes to understand life, or maybe even thinks deeply about things like I do, let me know. I am always fascinated by how differently people see the world. And honestly, I think we learn a lot from each other. Or maybe you see it completely different.